So each week during the month of May, we're actually taking a look at a different lie, a Jesus lie, we're calling it. We're taking a look at misinformation that maybe you've heard about Jesus. And the reason we're doing this is because we want to discover the truth about Jesus so that we can actually turn to Him with great confidence in the midst of this storm. And so the lie we want to address today is this. It's one that I find very troubling, and it's this idea that somehow you have to have your life all together before you can even turn or come to Jesus. I mean, the lie is this. It's that you've got to get your life together before you come to Jesus. And the reason I find this lie so troubling is because it's hard to get our act together, especially today in these unsettling times. And some of us are facing major issues. I mean, it may be health issues related to COVID-19 and some maybe not. Or some of us are facing financial pressures and some caused by shutdowns or the loss of a job, or some of us have jobs that are involved in the medical profession, and the stress can be overwhelming. And so life is hard. It's not easy to live today, and it's not easy to have our lives together. And I'm afraid a lot of us have bought into the lie that we've got to get our act together before we actually come to Jesus. And maybe somewhere along the way, you've been convinced that Jesus is not okay with you until you've got your life together, that what He really wants from you is to have your life all figured out before you come to Him. And we think we have to have that alcohol addiction corrected before turning to Jesus. We think we have to have that fractured relationship restored before coming to Jesus. Or we think we have to have answers to all of our questions. Questions like, why is there pain? Why is there suffering in the world before we can actually come to Jesus? Or we think we have to be able to withstand sexual temptations before Jesus is actually going to love us and accept us. And we think we have to know everything there is to know about Jesus before we can start a relationship with Him. And then for some of you, you've already come to Jesus, but you think somehow Jesus won't put up with you and He won't keep putting up with you unless you keep your act together. And here's the problem. Trying to get your act together before coming to Jesus, or trying to keep your act together, just results in feelings of frustration or disappointment or anger or bitterness or just feeling lost, maybe even thinking that somehow Jesus is always mad at you. So let me tell you the truth. The truth is that Jesus is actually okay with us being in process. Jesus is actually okay with us not having our act all together. The truth is Jesus is okay with our questions. He's okay with our doubts. Jesus is okay with our uncertainties. Jesus is okay with our I don't know. And He's okay with our being in process. And He meets us wherever we are in the process, wherever we are in our journeys. Now, yes, David, how do you know this? And well, how do I know that Jesus is okay with me when I don't have my act all together? And so I actually want to read you a story from the Bible that tells me that Jesus is okay with me actually being in process. It's a story that tells us that Jesus meets us right where we are, and He greets us with open arms again and again. And we'll put the story up on the screens for you, and I would invite you to actually read along on the screen and read the story with me if you can. It's John chapter 9. I want to point out a couple of interesting things that jump out to me, at least in this story. And I mean, what's very evident to me is that this man, he didn't have his act all together before Jesus came along and healed him. And as a matter of fact, he didn't even go and try to find Jesus. Instead, Jesus actually comes and finds him. And not only did he not go and try to find Jesus, this blind man, he never even asked Jesus to heal him. But this man, as Jesus approaches, he sits in silence. Maybe he was expecting Jesus to pass right by him. Perhaps he'd already resolved in his mind that Jesus would never waste his time with somebody like me, somebody that others would deem broken or useless. Can I just say, could it be that you think Jesus would never waste His time with you? You too are broken, and at times you wonder if you aren't useless. And can I just say, Jesus didn't pass by this man. Jesus stopped and He poured out compassion and He poured out grace on this blind man. And Jesus has the exact same response for you. He doesn't wait for you to get your act together. Jesus doesn't wait for you to figure it all out. Rather, He did the same thing He did for this blind man, Jesus does for you. He pours out His compassion and His grace on you right where you are, just as you are right now. And people that had known this blind man for his entire life, They wanted an explanation. They wanted answers. They said, how did this happen? How did you change? They asked him. And again, it's not like they were happy for him. They just wanted explanations. The thing is, this blind man, he really didn't have an explanation. He didn't really have an answer. He just said, it was Jesus. Actually, he didn't even say it was Jesus. He said, the man they call Jesus did this, which implies the guy didn't really know Jesus at all. And how did this happen? I don't know. I really don't know. I just know that the man they call Jesus did this for me. And yet for Jesus, that was enough. Jesus didn't expect this guy to have all of the answers. Jesus didn't expect this guy to have his act together. Nowhere close. All this man needed to know was that it was Jesus that had changed his life. You don't have to have all the answers. And when you don't have all the answers, don't be afraid to just say, I don't know. I don't know. All I know is that it was Jesus. It was Jesus that changed my life. And you see, life is a process. It's a journey. And we've got to keep moving forward. And there'll be times on our journeys where we're taking 3 steps forward and feeling good, and all of a sudden we find ourselves taking 2 steps back. And it'll happen again and again. And Jesus says, you know what? I'm actually okay with that. Just keep moving forward and following me. But in your journey and on your journey, you will fall back. And you will fall back. And when you do, here's what you need to know. Jesus is still okay with you because Jesus is for you. He's not against you. And all too often we have this image of God and Jesus just being angry, angry God, angry Jesus. Jesus is angry at me, but Jesus is for you. He's not against you. And he promises to lead us and to guide us if we'll only follow him and focus on him and to go before us and show us where to take our next steps. And Psalm 119, verse 105 says, your word is a lamp to guide my feet and a light for my path. And just think about it, a lamp doesn't show us the entire journey. The lamp doesn't eliminate the entire trip. It just shows us where to take our next step. He's for you when you feel trapped because you're working from home while at the same time you're serving as your kid's algebra teacher and their science teacher. And he's for you when you're at odds with your husband over whose turn is it to cook dinner. And he's for you when you're lying in bed and you're scared to death that it might be the coronavirus. And he's for you when you're working at a hospital with infected patients all around you and you haven't had a day off in weeks and you're worried about bringing the infection home to your family. And he's for you when you've been furloughed from your job and now you have no income to pay for groceries, let alone even think about paying the rent. And he's for you as you wait for your unemployment benefits to be deposited into your bank account. And he's for you when you fall back into bad habits, taking 2 steps backwards after doing so well for so long, and then all of a sudden, without any explanation, you stumble and you fall backwards. And see, the truth is that right now, in this moment, Jesus is for you. He's not against you.